Start. So welcome everyone to Property Feed webinar series for subdivisions. And this is specifically in relation to electrical engineering and electrical construction requirements for subdivisions. And we're joined by Ampflo, by Damian and Barbara, as well as guest speakers. Thank you for everyone joining on your Friday night. I'm sure we're all going to enjoy a glass of wine after this and some dinner. So just so everyone knows that listens on the video after, it is 6:30 on a Friday night. So what is Property Feed? Property Feed is your platform for building relationships in the property development industry. We connect consultants and contractors to clients, and we provide a forum for property development education. Your event coordinators are myself, Dan Everett, and Caitlin Thomason. So as mentioned, this is a property development subdivisions discussion, specifically about electrical. If you do have any questions, feel free to message via the chat function, or you can send through any questions via the email, events@propertyfeed.com.au. If we don't get through them today, we want to keep this at about 30-35 minutes. Myself, Damian and Barbara from Ampflo are happy to answer any questions, take any calls if you've got any site-specific developments that you want to talk about. Quick disclaimer, this content is just for information only. We do have some good content and case studies to go through, but it is for information only. So please seek professional advice if you have any projects you want to specifically talk about. Panel host for this discussion is myself. I'm a property development manager at Everett Property Development Management. I call myself a property developer for hire, and a lot of consultants and clients work for me. Think in that way. We're a consultancy. We undertake feasibility studies, and we essentially bring those to life, make sure we're keeping projects on time and under budget. So that's basically my job. And we work throughout subdivisions. We also, all throughout Queensland, specifically Southeast Queensland, and we do built form projects as well, including apartments and commercial developments as an example. We're joined by guest speakers from Ampflo, who are electrical engineers, Damian and Barbara. Thank you so much for joining us. And their details at ampflo.com.au if you want to touch base with Ampflo. So just to briefly explain about Barbara and Damian's background, they each have over 30 years experience to their name in the electrical supply industry, and today have become regarded as industry leaders within the electrical and telecommunications network design space. They've become widely regarded for their unique ability to simplify the daunting and complex nature of rules and regulations around land subdivisions for the electrical and telecommunications infrastructure design and construction process, leveraging both a high degree of technical expertise and industry knowledge to provide a cost-effective solution for their clients across all councils within Southeast Queensland. So key topics for discussion today: importance of understanding your DA, which is an abbreviation for development application or approval conditions in the relevant council, mitigating risk through due diligence and feasibility studies, discovering your infrastructure, so that includes above and below ground, and then we'll run through some subdivision case studies that I personally have been involved with, and also Damian and Barbara from Ampflo have been involved with. So Southeast Queensland has 12 councils, and Ampflo service those locations. We do as well. Basically, Ampflo are servicing them for electrical supply and all the way through to plan sealing documentation, which is required for your titles. So Damian and Barbara, did you want to come in and just talk briefly on some of your key points about this slide?
Yeah, certainly, Dan. Hey, thanks very much for the warm intro and letting us join in tonight. Hopefully we can inform everyone out there a little bit more about obviously the electrical and telecommunications side of things. And the reason why we put this slide up there this evening is because understanding your councils can make a huge difference to the cost implications to your development. So each area has their own obviously planning scheme, and we want to ensure that you understand a little bit more about those planning schemes. Jumping from different councils can have quite a significant impact on the infrastructure that's required to be built. So we'll go through a couple of slides in the future, which will talk about that in a little bit more detail, but that's why this is really important understanding your council conditions and making sure that you're reading through those conditions. A lot of people come to us and they don't understand their conditions or don't even think about their conditions, and it has some major cost implications.
Yeah, no, that's good insight. And we're very familiar with lodging development applications in terms of the different council requirements. But then the electrical work that you do with Energex and NBN, as an example, it's good. It's good to know that there are different requirements in each council. So I guess it sort of emphasizes that due diligence that we go through. So this slide again is over to Damian and Barbara regarding discovering infrastructure. Um,
Yeah, certainly. Thanks again, Dan. So look, just to familiarise yourself with a few of the common terms that we'll sort of talk about tonight. Most people, I think, have certainly seen water meters on the footpath, NBN pits, and certainly the Energex electrical pillars. So most people refer to those as green borders, or I think in the politically correct world these days, green pillars would probably be appropriate, but certainly we hear that terminology all the time. And just certainly everyone's sort of seen certainly the poles and the street lights, obviously all the cables and conductors. So just again, just to familiarise yourself with a few of the things that we'll talk about tonight. And we'll touch on what's important to, if you do have to move some of these things like NBN pits, street light poles, Energex poles, just to be aware of some of the costs associated. So we'll touch on that a little bit further as well.
Sure. Thanks, Damien. So I think straight into case studies. Let's briefly talk about a 1 into 2. I've specifically chosen this case study as an example that I have been involved with Ampflo, so I can share a bit of insights on the experience. So this is a 2-lot subdivision, north side Brisbane City Council. We managed this project through to successfully getting a sealed plan and registered titles. Proposed lots, you can see there, are just under 400 square metres. So we required a development application to subdivide these lots. You can see on the left there was an existing home, some vegetation and fencing. So we had to go through a demolition and abolishment process to actually successfully split this block. And some of the requirements for to actually service this into 2 lots required civil and electrical construction work. We had some fill and retaining walls to raise the pads, the building pads. That was 2 reasons we did that. One, for increased views, and also for a lawful point of discharge for stormwater. We had sewer at the back of the block. Water was connecting from the street, and as part of the subdivision, we provided 2 crossovers. Ampflo took care of the power and telecommunication requirements. So Damian and Barbara, do you want to share some insight? We can actually see an NBN pit in this middle photo. So I thought that would be a good one to bring into for your discussion.
Yes, look, we'll just touch on that one briefly, Dan. Obviously, like you said, the middle photo, there's a pit there on the footpath. 2 conditions for this subdivision would be certainly the condition for telecommunications, the provisioning for that. So it's important to have that infrastructure out the front, and certainly be able to provide the cabling for the future development that's going to occur on that land. Certainly from that perspective, and with the electrical, this one was a simple what we call Energex certificate of supply, which is another DA condition we've completed for this one. It's simply just requiring a provisioning from the existing infrastructure that was across the road, and it's provision that it's available to the lots. So at the moment, we've got 2 vacant lots of land, but when the people who obviously go to build on those lots of land, those connections are made directly to those houses. So yeah, and those are certainly coming from the overhead network. So that's the Energex existing overhead network.
Yeah, can you see that flashing on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the pole. I think you brought the overhead power over. So now that was really good, and we got the demo shot, construction works shot, photo, and then plan sealing. You can see the surveyor was just finalising, ready for the ASCONs on this one. So that was a successful site. Both lots pre-sold during the process. So that was a good result. Let's briefly have a look at this one, Damian and Barbara. This is a 1 into 2 that you've done in Holland Park. Can you share some insights on this?
Yeah, Dan, the reason we want to show this example, it just sort of tags back with understanding your council DA conditions. And certainly different councils have different rules of what they allow. So if you can just hover, seeing Dan, you've got the laser on there tonight for us. Can you just show everyone, obviously, you've got an existing overhead supply, so that's coming from the existing overhead infrastructure across the road to the existing house. So that's a nice, easy connection. And certainly the other connection to get power to the rear lot will come across the road to a property pole. So you can see it on the handle there, exactly where Dan's moving the mouse now. Yep, correct. So we'll go overhead to that pole. From that pole, we'll go underground to the rear lot. So that will give you the provisioning you require for plan sealing for Brisbane City Council. Now, the cost associated for that, for the provisioning and also for a property pole would be approximately $2,650. And on that occasion, you know, it's quite a cost-effective solution, and obviously in the Brisbane City Council area, a very easy way to get provisioning.
Yep.
Now, if we flip this, and this same example was actually in Logan City, and as we said down the bottom there, you're looking at around $22,000. And Dan, I know you're an inquisitive guy, and I'm sure you're going to ask me, well, why is it going to cost $22,000?
Yeah, I've got to make allowance for that. That's
Exactly. So we've had many people who have come to us, done lots of subdivisions in the Brisbane City Council area, and you know they might have come to us previously and they were charged $2,650. And then all of a sudden we tell them that now there's this planning scheme in Logan which requires them to put in an Energex pillar. So that's those green boys or the green pillars, and they can't use a property pole. So it's quite challenging for people to understand the differences between the different councils and why that cost would be a significant difference and a risk to your project. So if you're doing your feasibility, and you can see now all of a sudden your project's blowing out by $20,000 because you haven't allowed for the real cost of what it's going to be to build an infrastructure. Now, what makes up that $22,000 is a combination of an electrical design, telecommunications design, submission fees to Energex, audit fees to Energex, council fees as well. So council also take a little fee along the line, and obviously also the infrastructure to actually construct it. Now, when early in the presentation we talked about looking up, looking down, and understanding what's in your street, this one obviously the costs are you know, quite high because the development infrastructure, existing infrastructure, is on the other side of the road, and we would have had to tunnel bore this road. So most tunnel bores, you know, cost somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 depending on the width of the road, and again that adds a significant cost to your development. So yeah, I think what we're always trying to make sure is that you're aware of your DA conditions, you're aware of your planning schemes, and if you don't fully understand those, we're here to help you in due diligence, and we can flag that very, very early, even before you've got a DA in place, and we'll be telling you that this job should be costing around $22,000, and just allow for that in your feasibility.
Yeah, no, thanks, Damian and Barbara. And one thing I'll note is that if you've got a development approval through council, they don't assess and approve your power and telecommunication requirements. So you may have what you believe in this case is a really good battle axe subdividable block, but if the electrical requirements that you find out after you've got development approval are actually quite onerous, you may be sitting on a site that you don't really want to develop because it's quite expensive. So yeah, just I guess key tip there: development approval doesn't mean that you've factored in power requirements and telecommunications. So let's look at a 3-lot subdivision. This is another one that Damian and Barbara from Ampflo have been involved with in Logan City Council this time. So the previous plans were Brisbane City Council example. These plans are a Logan City Council example. And Damian and Barbara we're fortunate we've got some insight and some costing as well. So the middle plan is Energex, and then the one on the right is NBN. If you can tell us a bit about this one, Damian and Barbara.
Sure, Dan. Yeah, no worries. So look, one of the requirements, just to add to the previous slide, and same with this one, is Energex will always require for 2 rear lots the Energex pillar. So you see there at station 3, where the number 3 in pink is there. There's a pillar proposed to be built on this one. Now the reason for that pillar is to supply lots 2 and 3 at the rear. So these are where the complications come into slightly different and small type lot developments. And again, where not only have you now got planning rules, you've also got Energex rules as well. So Energex have their own set of rules. So certainly for this one, what we want to highlight is that for 2 or more rear lots, you'll always require construction. You'll always require an Energex pillar. You'll always require a design from us. So what might seem quite simple on the surface can be obviously some quite costly. And
Because I can see we've got an existing building, so the proposal for this is to retain. So this would have been a DA approval with a retention of existing dwelling. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
And then
correct.
they've already got an existing overhead line, so you'd hope you'd save a bit of money there, wouldn't you, and keep that one. But in this case, you've actually had to abolish that line and do the underground works.
Yeah, that's correct, Dan. And certainly you want to be aware of, obviously this one requires what they call a change of service. So the existing house, one of the rules again is that you must not cross someone else's lot. So at the minute, as you can see on the design there, from stations 1 to the existing building, it would cross straight through the property. So we've actually got to redivert that service, and that service would come from the pillar at location number 2 there. So it's station number 2. And the developer would have to run it along that green line there that you can see, and then redivert to their house. So there's some additional costs that were probably unexpected for this developer when they just thought it was going to be a simple direct connection, and it's again just being aware of those challenges as well.
Yep. Okay. Let's have a little look at another project that is a 7 lot, so slightly bigger now. This one's in Brisbane City Council. Excuse the 1 into 3. This one's a 1 into 7. I'm personally involved with this as a consultant with Ampflo as well, and we've actually just lodged this to council for a impact accessible development application for 7 lots, and we went through quite an intensive investigative period to really fine tune some numbers on this and produce a feasibility study. And within that, we looked at full civil design, ecological requirements, any arborist sort of services for the development. You can see there's a rehabilitation corridor actually on the top, this green section here. So, and there's also a bit of resumption for this 213 square meters. So there was a few things to sort of work through in the investigative phase. And Damian, I know you provided a lot of insight on Energex and NBN. So do you want to share a bit of insight on your plan on the right? What your thoughts were for this one?
Yeah, no worries. So Dan, as I say, you're extremely thorough, with this feasibility for this client. I know we worked with you on this to sort of get the best outcome for them. So well done to you on that. I was going to say, I'll let Barbara talk a little bit about this, but one point of note here is, which most people aren't aware of, is that, again, this is an Energex requirement. When you have a subdivision where you're creating 5 additional lots, so for example, this one is 1 into 7, we actually have to do some engineering on the Energex network. What we must satisfy is that the existing infrastructure is able to support the new development created. So those additional, on this occasion, additional 6 lots have been created that Energex network can support that. Now, there are times, and when we move on to the next slide, there are times where we may need to either 1, install a pad mount transformer, or 2, we may have to upgrade the existing Energex infrastructure. And unfortunately, as you know with subdivision work, the costs are brought back to the developer. So it's important to, again, this is why we talk about due diligence, because we can do a desktop audit normally on this sort of thing and give some pretty sound advice pretty early in the stages, as like you did. And be sure that there's not going to be some significant cost that's going to catch out the developer who's obviously doing this subdivision. So I'll just let Barbara talk about the super pillars, those big pillars that you're seeing there, and why we went this way on this occasion.
Sure.
Okay, so what we did here was 1 pillar will supply 2 lots. You've got 7 lots. It would mean a row of 4 pillars out the front. Now, you can't put the pillars close together, so they're usually about 1 metre apart. The alternative is we could use a larger pillar, and just to give you a size, to look at the size, you see on the left-hand side is the super pillar, on the right-hand side is the standard pillar.
Yeah.
If we use 2 super pillars, we can supply all the lots, because the super pillar will supply 4 lots.
Sure.
And that would end up with the row of pillars out the front, even though we have bigger pillars. So this was the best outcome for this particular subdivision, not having a long row of pillars right in front of block 1.
Yeah, brilliant. And we also we had some trees that we had to deal with. It wasn't this site wasn't just choosing the right the sort of a location for the pillar. We actually had to work around this of the existing trees and the verge trees as well. So there was a few different reasons why this was a good solution. So thank you, Barbara. We'll have a look at we'll go a bit bigger now. So this is 100 plus. I think you can tell me how many lots you're up to, Damian and Barbara, but this is a large development in Ipswich City Council. I know Ampflo have been working on this for many years, called Woodlinks Village. There's a couple of shots under construction here and partly complete. So over to you, Damian. You want to share some insights? I've put some bullet points here, just as some key points that we want to look at, but we've got a approved for construction issue plan this time by Ampflo that for quite a large significant development with a pad mount transformer. So if you can share a bit of insights on this one.
Yeah, no problems. So this is an example in Ipswich. It's about an 800 lot master planned estate. We've been working with the Woodlinks village since 2004. So as they progress each year with different stages, they're generally around 30 to 40 lots. I think this stage is around that sort of number as well. So there's a number of things here that we combine our electrical and telecommunications with. These guys have also got the opportunity for gas infrastructure. That's the APA gas group that they do the re-ticket on as well. So part of our design, we engage the gas consultants as well. And when we're installing the telecommunications and the electrical, we're also including the gas and the trenching at the same time. Obviously, a cost-efficient way of doing it for the development, which is obviously the luxury of a bigger master plan estate to have all that additional infrastructure for the new homeowners.
Yeah, sure.
Certainly due to the load, we obviously have what we call a master plan. So what we look at is strategically placing the transformers throughout the development in areas that are normally in parkland. They don't normally take up any land value. So obviously we try and mitigate any risk for the developer to be able to put that transformer on a piece of land that is not for sale or not resellable. And certainly transformers are installed because of basically the number of houses that need to be connected to that transformer. So it's a few more calculations other than just houses, but generally it's a house count that will require us to put a transformer in place. Yep. So we have to run not only the low voltage that goes to each of the lots, but we also have to run the Energex high voltage network throughout the estate as well. So again, it requires that sort of strategic planning very early in the development and ensuring the most cost-effective routes for quite expensive equipment. As an example, this pad mount transformer installed is around about $100,000 to $120,000 plus obviously the cabling as well. So they're very expensive items throughout these master plan estates.
Yeah, true. And locations for infrastructure this large as well. I know with some as a registered architect, I've done a lot of work, and if we've got to put one of these into an apartment complex or an office tower, it's a significant constraint on a small building pad. But you'd still have similar issues here. Like if this was located in a location that wasn't considered about, you may even need a DA, a change to the DA to accommodate it. So yeah, I can see that factoring in infrastructure as large as this early on is pretty integral. And that's what we had noted there as the PMT, just so everyone knows. And on the left-hand side is a call out of Ampflo's drawing of this C in the bottom left-hand corner. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, of a location that they've got for the HV and the LV lines. So, and this development I can see has different annotations for lots for some corner duplexes and also some zero lots. Can you and also some driveway annotations? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay. In the present times, a lot of councils allow for zero lots. Zero lots are when you are allowed to or permitted to build up to the boundary line. So that affects where we put the infrastructure because it will often clash with the driveway. so we have to maintain clearances. This detail here gives you an idea of the clearances. We tend to offset the pillar in front of the neighbouring lot. You don't, it's very rare to have two zero lots back to back. You generally have a zero lot, on this case, on the left, and then the adjoining lot would have their zero lot boundary on the left again. So it allows houses to build right up to the boundary, which means driveways in close proximity.
Mm-hmm. And this one here's an example plan for that specific subdivision. Damian, if you want to give some insights into this one.
So certainly, like Barbara just mentioned, you can see that there's obviously the pillars offset there slightly. The house is obviously built right up against that boundary as well. So as you can see, normally we place the pillar in the middle between the boundaries, but because of the future driveway, we need to maintain, again, Energex have rules, we need to maintain a minimum of 1 metre away from the edge of the driveway. So they're just some of the things during that through our design that we need to consider and add some complexities to some of these larger estates, which now are very narrow in their frontages. So obviously we're competing with water and sewer and all the other services as well. So it's always a challenge, and for us working in with civil engineers is a really important.
And you've got I can see here you've really done some investigative work on offset, so you're mitigating the requirement for bollards and sort of additional added costs of that sort of putting bollards in. So I can see that why that's so integral for this. Just looking at time, I'll just go on to probably a general question for us about what we're seeing currently. So what are we finding in the current trends in our industry, in the property development and construction industry, given the COVID-19 pandemic, and probably relating that, I guess we can both talk from experience of running businesses that are connected to this space. But I might share a few insights. What I'm seeing a building of confidence. I'm quite excited to see JobKeeper is starting to progress through, and approvals are starting for that. So that's exciting. Lenders, in terms of financial lenders on developments, are continuing to increase their due diligence. Projects are continuing to be on hold, but are actually starting to kick back into gear and start again. Construction sites are progressing very well. I've got no EOTs, extensions of time requests in relation to COVID-19 at the moment. So I think that's a good result for the construction industry. Authorities like Brisbane City Council, for example, and Queensland Urban Utilities, we're continuing to see them on the ground, doing inspections for pre-start meetings and completion meetings, on maintenance, off maintenance meetings. So, authorities are continuing to progress with construction. Pre-lodgement meetings are typically now via video call. So we've had a number of successful pre-lodgement meetings with both state government and local councils, which has worked really well. We've had some delay to construction materials being shipped to Australia. And I think small businesses are really working hard adjusting to these current times. But I guess in all honesty, I'm seeing a light of confidence. And I've had some discussions with Damian and Barbara, and I think that their business is maybe seeing a similar sort of confidence as well coming back to the market. But can you shed some information on that, Damian, on what you're seeing?
Yeah, no worries, Dan. Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, the last couple of weeks has been a whirlwind. Everyone's really, getting a lot of confidence back with the announcements from the government, obviously supporting everyone throughout Australia. Obviously, the first couple of weeks, we definitely noticed people were in shock. People went into their shells. They were working from home and trying to sort all that out as well. So, the difference between 6 weeks ago when the Prime Minister announced a lot of shutdowns throughout Australia and obviously a lot of constraints to what we've seen in the last couple of weeks has been really encouraging. The great opportunity for developers at the minute is that it's extremely competitive. Obviously, the markets has been reduced. From a construction perspective, great opportunity to move forward in your development because the construction costs are more competitive than ever right now as well, with everyone grasping for the work. And like you mentioned, Dan, certainly the construction side of things is continued to move on.
Yep.
Our business deals with lots of mum and dad developers, medium to professional developers, and then large, stock exchange listed developers. And we're finding that across the board, it's very similar sort of trend where there's a lot more confidence definitely coming back in the market over the last couple of weeks. And if we continue like this over the next couple of weeks, we will be almost back to where we left off before the shutdown, 6-8 weeks ago. So yeah, exciting times, and we're seeing some really good things starting to move again.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's good to continue to share that insight and confidence to our community. So thank you. I just want to move on to some questions. Please email through. We may have time to answer a couple. Some has already come through. But yeah, feel free to email, and I'll make sure that we get a response to you for any specific questions. So one question, and Barbara, if you can lean into the microphone for this one, can you elaborate on separation requirements between water meters, fire hydrants, pillars?
Okay, well, water meters to pillars, Energex have their own legislation. They require 600 millimeters clearance around their electrical pillars. Anything else is put in by QU or Logan Water, whichever the water authority is. So although Energex only wants 600 millimeters, QU, for example, wants 1.2 meters, Logan Water 1.1 meters. So it varies from water authority to water authority. So that's something that's on a case by case. Same with fire hydrants. Again, Logan City Council have their own rules. They like them on opposite boundaries, or at least 3 meters away. Other councils will let you go right up to the pillars as long as you maintain Energex's 600 clearance.
Yeah, okay. And perhaps I will I'll discuss with Damian and Barbara and get a short bit of information on that, because I think that's quite insightful for especially a lot of civil engineers doing designs and designing their water meters and fire hydrants to work around the electrical infrastructure. So that's cool. That's really insightful. There's another question that's come through. Do you believe that a preliminary electrical communication and gas services report should be lodged with a DA?
That's a very good question. That was you.
Well, as I say, I think it depends on the council and what they're requiring. We find, generally speaking, they don't request that in a DA up front. However, we do find at times, depending on the development, would be very helpful. It just depends on the circumstances in which council you're working with, Dan, and certainly we've probably seen at times with Redlands, Moreton Bay sometimes request them as well, and Ipswich from time to time. So, yeah.
If a particular council doesn't request them, it's very, very helpful for the civil engineers, because it will iron out all the clashes. The developer knows exactly how his lot is being serviced, and it makes things a lot smoother later on down the track.
I think I'll just provide my comments. I think it would be it would be good. It would be good for the industry to include preliminary concepts. And I'm at some of the developments that I'm lodging DAs for. Some councils, specifically the ecology side of it, and we've just been through a development. We're actually going through 2, I think, Damon and Barbara, but we are being required to show council our trenching requirements. So, even though we show typically the civil requirements on plans, the ecologists know that we're going to be trenching in other locations for NBN and Energex conduits internally, for example. So some of the conceptual internalized reticulation is being called up by ecology and arborists in council. So I think that's great. It's forcing us to think about trenching solutions, servicing solutions early on. I wish we saw a bit more of it, to be honest. It would probably mean that the ratio of development approvals that actually proceed to construction would increase, which is good. I'm just cautious of time. We don't have too much time left, so please feel free to email any questions, and definitely any site specific. I'm happy to answer any questions I can, and then we can get Ampflo to provide some insights onto your developments as well. So that's events@propertyfeed.com.au. So thank you, Ampflo. Thank you, Damian and Barbara. Really insightful talk, and I think it was really great to go through the smallest development we can do in terms of demolition and a 1-2 through to a a century-long development that you're currently working on in the Woodlinks one. So that's been amazing and insightful for me and the community, for the Property Feed community. And yeah, if anyone on the line, if you want to connect with Ampflo, ampflo.com.au. If you want to chat with myself, you can reach me at daneverett.com.au. Do you want to share any last comments? And thank you, Damian and Barbara.
Yeah, certainly. Hey, thanks very much, everyone, for listening tonight. And certainly, we welcome you to feel free to chat to us at any stage. And like I said, our theme tonight was more around due diligence and doing your homework, and we're more than happy to assist with that. And finally, congratulations, Dan and Caitlin, on Ruby. So exciting times. I've had 3 children myself, so I know what it's like. And yeah, I'm sure, even though it's difficult times at the moment, you'll get through it and come out the other side with a very big smile on your face. So congratulations to you both.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've got a little one, my first child, called Ruby, just over 7 weeks here, so 7 weeks old at the moment. So, and I'm hopefully introducing Ruby to my mother for the first time very shortly because of the coronavirus situation. My mum's quite far away in Noosa, so it's too long of a drive for us to connect. So yeah, it's been interesting times, but I've got more smiles on my face than I ever had. So I'm very happy at the moment. Thank you, Damian. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you for everyone joining.
No worries. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah.